What up, everybody? What's up, Sherrod? What's up, Josue? I'm Jimmy
What
Toscano.
up?
The boys are back, talking about us, but also talking about the Boston Celtics, who steamrolled the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee, 140 to 99. Apparently, the traffic was a lot lighter up in Milwaukee than it was in DC. They got off
Oh,
to a hot start, and we have Sherrod Blakely live in Milwaukee tonight. Sherrod, tell us what the hell happened from Tuesday to Thursday.
Dude, I don't know what they put in like their sports drinks or water, but yo, they need to like bottle that and carry it to every game. They were a different kind of team. Their focus was much greater. The effort was significantly greater. They did not look like those soft, flimsy ass cupcakes that we saw in DC. They got that ass whipped by a bad Wizards team that didn't have Bradley Beal or Kyle Kuzma.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a little salty
that
about
part.
that. Still a
Yeah,
little
Yeah,
salty, but
same,
I'm but
as you
I'm
same.
I'm,
can
I'm,
be,
I'm
but
focusing on the present. I'm going to focus on the moment, and the moment is this game against Milwaukee, where again they played an exceptionally just one of their better games this season. And you can't ignore the fact that Milwaukee was coming off a back to back. You can't ignore that. But
nope.
just like I wasn't about making those excuses when the Celtics had their little traffic jam, which I guess that meant they had to give everyone an easy pass in DC to get to the lane. I'm not going to give Milwaukee an excuse that they played at
Oh,
a back to
see
back.
what you did there, Troy.
Bottom line is you're paid to play, and
For sure.
Milwaukee is a better team than we saw tonight, obviously. And if these two meet in the playoffs in the conference finals, it's going to be a bloodbath. It'll be a better game. But on this particular night, the Celtics I thought played about as well as I've seen them play in a long time, and Milwaukee conversely I thought this was one of, if not their worst game of the season. And when those two worlds collide, this is what you get. You get a 41 point ass whipping.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so
Josue?
true. Yeah, Sherrod, you bring up a good point because let's be honest, if the Celtics, if they win in Washington and then do this win would feel 10 times more dominant, right? You would be sending a clear cut message. I mean, the Celtics still sent the message, especially with the way they defended Giannis. I think that's the part that we have to. I mean, that's one of the biggest takeaways, right? One of many. Robert Williams having a big chunk of that, I think, is significant as well. But you also see what Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown do. I mean, look, this is what we expect the Celtics to do in terms of them responding after a performance like that. That's just what history has told us before. But to do it on the national stage against the Milwaukee Bucks, I mean, because they wanted this win too. I
Mhm.
mean, the Celtics clearly wanted it more because you can see by the way they were, their approach and their effort, like Sherrod mentioned, but also you see their execution on offense. I mean, just really like thin margin of error. That thin margin of error. I mean, the Celtics just made it look easy tonight, man. Like 6, 7 straight possessions, just executing, and then pushing the Bucks to do things that they didn't really have to. Right? All of a sudden, the Bucks are rushing into their offense in that first half. They can never get a grip on the game, and then the second half was more of the same. I mean, yeah, Tatum and Brown, incredible, 70 points. At one point, they outscored the entire Bucks team. I mean, that's how dominant they can be. Obviously, we know that. But to do it against this Bucks team, even on the second night of a back to back, it's good, it's great. But if this was another win right after coming out of that game against the Wizards, again, it would have been it's an unfortunate opportunity that they missed that.
Yeah, so if a lot of the commenters are already getting on the fact that John Zannis is not on tonight's show. He is
Come
load
on,
management.
it's the end of the
They're
season,
saying, oh,
yeah, low
of course
management.
John's not on the show tonight after a big Celtics win, but I can confirm that he did have this one uh, marked off prior to the outcome of tonight's game. So no Zannis tonight. Bobby is
This is a game time
let's
decision. Game
let's
time
put it this
decision.
way. It's Bobby's birthday today. He he's around. He's around. He might be watching right now, but I'm not sure if he's gonna make it on. We'll see.
Enjoy your night, Bobby.
Yeah,
Do your
exactly. Do your
thing.
thing, Bobby. It's birthday, Bobby. Just don't come on in your birthday suit, whatever you do. But
Yeah, it's the first half of a back to back. So enjoy yourself.
guys, and 140 from the Celtics. Josue, you mentioned it. I think, was it 70 combined from Tatum and Brown? The Bucks looked like the Celtics from Tuesday. It was almost like a little role reversal here. They were the ones coming out bricking. I mean, the first maybe the first quarter, first half of the first quarter, things were close. The Celtics just put the clamps on them and ran them off the court. Was it like a 30 something to 9 run at one point? But it just felt like the Bucks. It did look like the Bucks were on the second night of a back-to-back, and it looked like the Celtics were out to prove that Tuesday was a fluke. And you
Well,
can just see the difference in just effort and intensity from them from the start.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about this game I'm 100% sure is going to happen is Milwaukee's going to go back and they're going to make significant adjustments when these two meet again. And I'm going to tell you what the one adjustment that they're going to make, and you know, I hate to bring it up, but they're probably not going to play Jay Crowder as much as they did tonight. The Celtics, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Marcus Smart, they went at Jay bad. And it wasn't like we're going at him because that's our old teammate and we want to show him out. They went at him because he has lost a couple of steps. Jay may still be able to knock down that three ball. We didn't really see that tonight, but defensively, he has clearly lost a step or two. And the Celtics
make him run.
The Celtics recognize that. And Grayson Allen, I think Grayson's a solid player, but he can't defend Jalen or Jason. And so when those two guys were able to pretty much get wherever they wanted to, and there was no defensive help, Giannis was taken away from the basket. I thought the Celtics, one of the things they did a really good job of was they made Lopez a non-defensive factor, because to me he is the best defensive player in the league this year. And there were multiple possessions where you could see the Celtics were able to keep him away from the basket because they were making so many shots from the perimeter that he couldn't he couldn't camp in the paint the way I think he wanted to, and that opened things up for Jalen. The Celtics did a great job of moving the ball offensively, figuring out where the mismatch was and attacking it. Didn't hesitate, didn't deliberate over, should I pass, should I go, just go to the cup. And Tatum, this was certainly one of his better games shooting the ball from three-point range.
Thanks, Ryan.
So this was, again, when you start looking at all the boxes that the Celtics checked off in this game, Milwaukee, even if they were at the top of their game or close to it, I'm not sure they would have been able to win this one. This felt like if both teams played their best, Boston, the way they played, probably would have won by 10. As opposed to 40. It was that kind of game.
So I'll ask the question. It seems like it's a simple answer. Which Celtics team are they, Sherrod? Which one are they closer to? Are they closer to Tuesday or are they closer to tonight?
Well, I think they're closer to tonight because of their damn record. They're going to be like the second or third seed. So that to me, if they were closer to that team we saw Tuesday night, they're probably looking at the fifth or sixth seed. And John Zannis would probably be here just screaming his ass off.
I think the point I'm trying to make is that it's almost like Jekyll and Hyde with these guys. You really don't know. Yeah, you really just don't know what you're going to get on any given night. But I will say that they do tend to show up for the big ones, right?
They have played better against the better teams. I will agree with
that. That's the thing, yeah. I was going to say that, yeah.
That's a problem, though, until you get to the playoffs. Because they've got some teams ahead of them that Toronto got a couple games with Toronto. That's a team that they could potentially see in the first round. Last thing you want to do is give that team confidence going into a playoff series if they handle you twice. So I think the Celtics, the biggest thing they need to do is figure out that happy medium between being certainly better than what we saw at Washington, but you don't have to necessarily be lights out the way you were tonight in order to be successful. They got to figure out how to be good. At least, I should say, not be good, be better than they need to be in order to win the games they're supposed to.
I'm out of here, guys.
Yeah, no question. I just think regardless of who they're playing against, they need to have that momentum going into the postseason. I mean, this has to be the way they play, regardless if it's against a playoff team, or a team like we saw against the Wizards. I mean, they have to approach every game in the same way, especially at this point of the season when you want to get that momentum going into the playoffs. So hopefully, like Joe Mazzulla said, it was just an off night that happened in the nation's capital. I mean, the timing of it isn't great, especially when we were talking about the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Maybe that's still in play, but either way, I mean, I just think at this point, momentum is way more important than anything right now for the Celtics team, especially if you're talking about one of these, Raptors or underdog teams that are going to come out of the play-in tournament with that type of energy, right? And the Celtics have to obviously match that, and they don't always do that against those teams that are flirting around the 500 record or below 500 for that matter.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Who stood out to you tonight from Boston? I mean, aside from the Jays, because I have one guy in mind.
Lots of guys stood out. I mean, I would say if I had to pick someone not named Jaylen Brown and not named Jason Tatum, I'm probably going to go low-key. I thought was really good. Was Malcolm Brogdon.
Okay.
I thought Malcolm, scoring-wise, was effective. I thought defensively, this was one of his better games defensively. And to me, that is what made this game overall such a special one for the Celtics. Yeah, they scored and shot the ball really well, but think about this. They beat the snot out of the team with the best record in the league and held them to under 100 points. And for the most part, their better defenders spent a large chunk of the game on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're still able to just be in the right place and do a lot of the right things, Robert Williams, I thought, had a really good game too. He made some plays that looked very reminiscent of load management Rob. I mean, he had one play where I can't remember who got beat off the dribble, and Rob came from one side of the court to the other to block the ball out of bounds. And those are the kind of things that when you think back to how well he played last year, when we were legitimately talking about him as the best defensive player in the NBA,
Right.
Those were the kind of plays that he was making, and he was making them look easy. They didn't look as easy tonight as they've done as he has, last season. But the fact that he's back to making those kind of plays and doing it with a little bit of a rhythm to him defensively, though, again, these are when Joe Mazzulla talks about like developing good habits going forward. Those are the kind of things that you've got to do consistently, and regardless of the outcome of the game. If you're developing those good habits, being where you need to be defensive, being being an elite help side defender, knocking down open shots, not turning the ball over. Those are the kind of things that are going to get this team to a championship if that's where they want to be at the end of the day.
Josue, you got anyone different? I mean, I'll be honest. I was gonna say Rob Williams. I thought you were gonna say Rob Sherrod.
Yeah, that was
but
my
you
guy.
kind of did. I do want to talk about Rob for a minute. I just feel like he's been a guy that I've been highly critical of this season for, I think, fair reasons. Availability being number one, but more so consistency. And I mean, we talked about this, I think, a couple games ago, and he had a fine night, and it was like, if Rob can give you this, are the Celtics okay? And the answer was yes. If he can give you 20 minutes of effective basketball and just be some close to full version of Rob, I don't think we're expecting him to jump out the gym, then you're going to be in good shape. And tonight, I thought he was all over the place. He was keeping possessions alive, giving the Celtics second chance opportunities. You mentioned the block. I saw another big block. I think it was was it either late third or early fourth. I forget when he was still in the game. And he did actually get all the way up there and got that ball at the very tip of the arc. If he's getting bouncy again right in time for the playoffs, then I might have to go apology cam, because I was highly critical of, just the amount of time he was playing, how often, and almost like they were almost, I don't want to say like covering up for the fact that he just couldn't, whether it was wind or whether it was just pain tolerance or whatever it was. It just felt like they weren't getting anything out of him this season. It almost felt like a lost season. I mean, I still feel like he's not nearly as much involved in the offense as he needs to be, but his involvement is in. What the heck's going on? Something's going on over there. It might have been Sherrod. His involvement is the fact that he is able to keep possessions alive and allow the ball to get out to guys at the three-point line after a missed shot. So he's still involved offensively. He's just not a guy that they're looking for. He's not an option right now. So I don't know if that's going to change this year, but he's at least making himself a part of the offense more so than I think he was to start in the beginning of this season for him when he started playing.
Not gonna lie, Jimmy, I was real nervous when I look up at the score and the Celtics are up by 41 and Rob's still on the floor.
I know.
I was thinking
he's got to get burned though.
This better not end badly. And then he got fouled, which was, that was just that momentary like, okay, it's just a normal foul. Makes his free throws, and Luke came in like a maybe 30, 40 seconds later. But my visceral reaction, I think, was very reminiscent of what a lot of Celtics fans were feeling at that point. They're thinking, like, this game is over. Get his ass out of there. He's done enough. And you're right, Jimmy. I mean, if they can get 20 minutes, because I don't think you need Rob to play 30 minutes to have a great postseason run. I think if you can get 20 minutes, and here's the thing about his play on the court.
Thanks,
I don't think you need him to be on there for 20 minutes making a significant impact. I think he needs to be on the court for 20 minutes and have the opponent feel him and know his presence there. He doesn't have to block every shot, but if they're thinking about attacking the rim and they know he's out there, they'll swing it out and try to get something on the perimeter and won't attack. He needs to be someone who has a presence, and it's not always going to be showing up in the stat sheet. That to me is it's not so much what teams try to do when he's out there, it's what they're trying not to do and what they're going away from. That's his great value when he's out there for 20 minutes. So we'll see.
Yeah, no question, Sherrod. And I think that's why this type of performance that's something that's going to be on their mind when these two teams meet in the playoffs. I think his impact is significant when you think about someone that can chase down blocks, obviously, like he did. Be someone that can prevent Giannis from getting to the hoop. I mean, that's a big part of this as well. But then also when you see how the Celtics are playing defensively as a team when he's out there, I think there's something to be said about that. Him coming off the bench, I think it's great. 20 to 25 minutes during the playoffs, that's ideal. Hopefully we see good Rob from the most part of those outings, but specifically against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, he's so important, and I think he reminded everyone of that tonight.
Absolutely, and again, I think it's no like secret that if they can get a pretty close to healthy Rob, I mean that's kind of the X factor for these guys because they didn't really have him much this year. I think a lot of people kind of overlook that when the Celtics do go through some of those lulls defensively. He's a huge piece of that defense, regardless of what he does on offense. He's not out there for offensive reasons. He's out there for defensive reasons. I want to ask you guys too about another possible development here. I don't know if this was just a bad game for Giannis or if the Celtics were defending him in a certain way, but I mean, he only took 11. It doesn't look like a bad game, right, when you look at the numbers, but for him, 0 for 5 from 3 is the thing that stands out to me because I think you got to do everything you can to get him out of the paint, to force him into shooting. He airballed a 3 tonight, a wide open one. It's the one part of his game that he hasn't really been able to develop to the point that I think an MVP should, is his outside shooting. And if you can just stop him from getting that momentum that, I mean, it's obviously much easier said than done, and they find ways to make sure that he does. But if you can prevent him from getting that full steam ahead to the rim, because at that point you're a sitting duck, and force him into some shots, even if they aren't super contested shots, I mean that's how you're gonna beat the Bucks. I feel like.
Yeah, I didn't think he was as aggressive as he normally is tonight. To be honest with you,
No.
But I think part of that stemmed from the fact that when he was trying to be aggressive, he had bodies coming at him from all different angles. I mean, there was basically a wall in front of him, and if he found a crack in that wall, they would tighten that spot up. And then if he tried to spin away, there was help coming from the blind side. So he never really got into the kind of flow that he is accustomed to. And part of that had to do with the fact that he had no help. I mean, we haven't talked. I mean, Drew Holiday dropped a 51 piece last night. Had 6 tonight. Had 6 tonight. I don't have this. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm not sure there's ever been a player who ever had a 50-plus night and had as huge a discrepancy in the next game as we saw in Drew Holiday. And I'm a huge Drew Holiday fan. I think he's the best two-way player in the NBA. He's that good overall, but he was not tonight. This was definitely an atypical Drew Holiday kind of game, and the Celtics I thought had a lot to do with that and I spoke with someone about this earlier. His play, I thought, more than Giannis, was going to dictate how this game went. If he's able to get to his spots, make an impact offensively, and just take either Tatum or Brown away or limit them, which he has the ability to do because he's that good. This was going to be a tough night for Boston to win, but obviously none of that happened. Drew couldn't make shots. Tatum and Jalen couldn't miss shots. And next thing you know, you're seeing the Milwaukee Bucks get that ass whipped by 41 points.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that simple?
Sherrod said Drew's on the wrong side of history tonight. It could be.
I don't to go from 51 to 6. I mean, that's that's going from the penthouse to the shack. I mean,
for sure. I mean, did they just go too hard last night? Is that what it comes down to?
The shack out back, right? Like not even attached.
Because you're not going to get the Bucks on a second night of the back-to-back in the playoffs. There's not going to be any back-to-backs.
I watched them against Indiana. And Indiana is not the most talented team in the NBA, but they play hard. I mean, that's a Rick Carlisle coach team. They're going to play hard. But I didn't think that Milwaukee, to be honest, was pushed that hard. I thought Milwaukee, they kind of took over, in the second half. I would say latter parts of the third quarter, early fourth, and just really, they never were really. I thought their control of the game was never really threatened. But damn, I mean, that's from 51 to 6 points. That is, my gosh. But again, if you're the Celtics, you just got to take it, be happy with the W, and keep it moving. On to Utah.
Yeah,
Utah. Back to home for Utah.
So is all well now in Celtics land? Is it that simple? I mean, you just forget about Tuesday, and because I mean,
I'm not.
No, you're still a little.
People don't forget, Jimmy, especially if they stay in that second seed, which is still
Right.
Still a strong possibility, right?
And Josue, that's the thing that for me is going to be a kind of it's going to bug me at the end of the season. If they finish like one game out of first place tie, which now they have the tiebreaker with Milwaukee, you're going to look at those Orlando games. You're going to look at the game here in Milwaukee where they were playing basically their B team and they had the game pretty much won. You're going to think about the Washington game. There's at least 8-9 games that you're going to say, if they would have just won one of these games that they really played well enough to win, but for whatever reason just absolutely crapped it away when it mattered most, they could have the number one seed at home court throughout the playoffs. So I don't know how comfortable, if I'm the Celtics, I'm feeling about having to play Game 7 in this building.
Well, they didn't look uncomfortable tonight, but yeah, to your point, it's not going to be the second night of a back-to-back, and there's going to be a lot more on the line. The Bucks aren't just going to come in there sleepwalking. Sherrod, I would venture to guess that a lot of those games the Celtics dropped that they shouldn't have dropped. I would imagine that the guy on our screen right now, Jason Tatum, probably had a slow start. I mean, a lot of these games, it feels like he comes out after the game and says, I have to do a better job of, getting my guys going early on. We came out flat tonight. And it feels like they, not taking anything away from Jaylen Brown, because he's a guy that always seems to come out firing to start the games, and that happened again tonight. I think he got, 17 in the first quarter? Jaylen Brown.
17 in the first 25 points he scored, yep.
Jaylen Brown is known for coming out hot, right? But Jason Tatum, it's kind of the opposite. Sometimes it seems like he's a little slower to get into these games. But 40 points tonight from him, 12 of 18 from the field, extremely efficient. Look at that three-pointer line, 8 of 10 from three. I mean, I'm going to say that's his best game as a pro from the three-point line. I'm just going to go out there and say that. 8 rebounds and assists, no big deal. How important is it? We talked about consistency with Rob Williams earlier, but how important is it for Tatum to have a little bit more consistency in the way he sort of shows up to some of these games?
It's huge. I mean, because
not to cut you off, but the playoffs are coming up here, and if there is one knock on Tatum so far in his career, it's that he's been a little iffy in the playoffs.
Well, I think the key tonight was a blueprint of you're going to be like that. This is how you do it. Jaylen scored 17 of the first 25 points, and Jaylen was able to kind of give them a little bit of a lead. Tatum basically took the baton from there and got his game going in the second quarter, and then that little bit of a lead became a major cushion, and they just continued to just snowball from that point. And for him, that's kind of the way this stuff has to go. Jaylen is going to keep you kind of even Steven for the most part, maybe give you a little bit of lead with most teams with his ability to score and impact the game at the start. The second quarter is when Tatum has to take over. He has to go into Tatum takeover mode and put the Celtics in position to take control of the game. And then third quarter, it's just kind of, it's dealer's choice. Jaylen, Jason, one of you needs to kind of just take the bull by the horn and just really take control of the game. And I thought this was one of the better games they did of playing off one another. Other than in the first half, basically it was Jaylen off the bat, then Tatum. Second half, it was a clear mix of the two, to the point where, they're up by 35-40, and at that point, it just doesn't matter. Just get your ass on the bench. You're done for the night. You got the win. They're going to have to continue to figure that out. But to your point, Jimmy, I mean, Tatum has to develop a consistent rhythm. And, with the three ball, when it's going the way it was tonight, you absolutely keep shooting. But he still has to remember that on the nights when it doesn't, go on the block, play a little bit of bully ball, get the matchup against a team like Milwaukee that works for you. Like, for example, if let's say you're swinging the ball around, you're not trying to post up Giannis. That's a bad idea. You shouldn't try to post up Drew Holiday, who, even though you've got the size advantage, Drew is a strong guy. You go for Grayson Allen. You go for Jay Carter. You go for guys that you know that
they
can't
bullied
guard.
A couple guys, yeah.
So it's not that complicated. It really isn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's guys that they can beat off the dribble. I mean, the whole Jay Crowder, it was obvious, like they were targeting him because they knew that they had that quicker step. I mean, Jay obviously hasn't played a full NBA season, and it showed, and the Celtics just continued to do that. And that's part of their maturation this season, right? I mean, finding the mismatches, knowing where to attack in transition. And the Bucks were, playing the heel. They were trying to keep up on defense, and the Celtics just took advantage of that. Now, the three-point shot, obviously establishing that early, it helped this team in a big way. Obviously, that was a big part of this win, but it wasn't the whole story, which I like that about the Celtics win, because this offense can find other ways to score, can attack, obviously they have guys that can beat you off the dribble. They have, guys in the backcourt that can do the same. I mean, it's not just Tatum and Brown. And I think we saw a good, healthy balance of that against this Bucks team. When the Bucks, especially in that second quarter, rather, right before halftime, and they're scrambling as if it's the fourth quarter because they were so afraid to be down by a bunch that they rushed their offense, and the Celtics took full advantage of that and made them pay on the other end. And building up that 40-point, lead, the Bucks just didn't have it in them to even come close to cutting that lead in half, or it seemed like at least in that fourth quarter until. So I just think the Celtics, I mean, this is the blueprint, obviously, it seems like, and especially against a team like the Bucks. But you're not going to get that kind of effort every single night from Milwaukee, obviously. But again, it sends a message. It's going to be a lasting impression, I think, for when the next time these two teams see each other.
I got this stat from producer Amit. Jason Tatum has averaged 35.7 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 4.5 assists in 6 games, in his last 6 games against the Bucks. So he's not scared of playing the Bucks in the playoffs. If everyone, not that I wouldn't say that anyone thought that he was. I mean, this Celtics team has proven that they can beat the best teams in the NBA. It's just they just need to show up. When it comes to just talent, they can be more talented than anybody in the league. It's just putting it all together at the same time. So, a few people in the comments are correcting me about Tatum in the playoffs. I think what I was talking about more so was like in some bigger situations, more so like the finals when it comes to Tatum in the playoffs. But I still think that he has room to improve in those areas for sure. So again, a night like tonight proves why he was in the MVP conversation for much of this year, proves why he's, all NBA and why, any team would consider him to be the cornerstone of a franchise. Now, we can't talk about Tatum without talking about Brown. We don't want to hurt any feelings here. So Brown, again, and this is a classic Brown game. Came out hot, paced the team, gave them everything they needed to contend with the Bucks early on. And when the rest of the team kind of snapped out of it, he was able to sort of, fall back a little bit as he's, not in a bad way, but just, allow some of the other guys to sort of be aggressive in the way he was. 30 points tonight. Again, another efficient game, 13 and 20 from the field. I think everyone who's watched the Celtics over the last couple of months would agree that he's easily been their best player, most consistent player night in, night out. Even with anything else going on, the one thing that you have to say about Brown is that he brings it. He's bringing it every single night right now. He is locked in. Whether it's because he's dead set on being third team All-NBA or because he was dead set on carrying this team to the playoffs or a championship, whatever the reason is.
It's both, Jimmy.
It probably is both. That's fine. But whatever it is, everyone's benefiting from it if that's the case. So I think, again, Tatum and Brown combined were going neck and neck scoring-wise with the entire Bucks team through about 3/4 of this game. It's just, another great performance from Brown, Sherrod.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Jalen does. I mean, and it's to the point where the idea that he can go off for 30 points is just like, yeah, we know, been there, done that. It's no shockers, no surprise. And he's making what normally would be a really, really good game for most players pretty average for him because he's so consistent with it. That's a testament to his ability to just bring it every night, regardless of what's going on outside of noise and all that stuff. Jalen has been able to just focus on being a great player and helping this team win. And again, the thing that's that stands out to me about Jalen of late is him understanding what the game needs when it needs it. Like, there were moments in this game where I thought that they really needed someone to score it. He stepped up. Other games where they needed to really be solid defensively. And I'm looking at the different movements and motions by the players, and Jalen made sure he was where he needed to be when he needed to be there. Little things like that are the things that make you understand why the Celtics covet him so much. Why the Celtics understand that having him and Tatum as your lead players, as your top, your 1-2 punch, that's your best pathway right now to winning a championship.
Right. Facts, my dog, as our friend Rob Williams would say. Josue, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, just the look on Giannis's face. I mean, obviously, it can't be, easy to go through that. Losing, seeing your team, everything unfold the way it did, and you knew, you checked out at that point. But I mean, you can't help but wonder, like, it's kind of what Sherrod brought up about Drew Holiday, what he did last night compared to what he did now. And if you're Giannis and you're watching Jalen and Tatum go out and do this, you can't help but wonder, like, man, if find this sort of momentum throughout a series against these guys, like I got to find a way to get more out of my teammates. I don't know if I can get a type of production that Tatum gets out of Jalen. Now, again, obviously, Drew Holiday can do that. He's about that life from time to time, but is it the same? You know what I mean? That same level when these guys are on, because obviously it's not just Tatum and Brown when they're both clicking. It's Brogdon at the same time. It's Al Horford knocking down 3-pointers because he's getting all these open looks that Tatum and Brown allow because of what they're doing. So I just think when the Celtics put everything together the way they did tonight, it was a tough realization maybe for Giannis to take it all in and say, man, like we have to really make sure we're on our game when we see this team in the best of 7 series, because they're tough. They're really tough. And regardless of what happens at the end of the regular season, I mean, that message was sent, I think, tonight for sure.
Well, you know what though, this game, I think one of the things that came about tonight that people are just going to kind of gloss over is the fact that Brook Lopez was a non-factor. Because a lot of the easy layups and finishes at the rim and guys getting hurt because they're getting beat off the dribble. Brook has done a tremendous job all season of keeping that at a minimum. He cleans up a lot of mess. He does a lot of what Rob Williams did last year, cleaning up mistakes that the defense makes, and that just didn't happen in this game. And so, it reinforces the idea that as talented as the Bucks may be with Giannis and with Chris Middleton and with Drew Holiday as scorers, it is their defense that sets them apart, that has allowed them to just catapult to the top of the NBA standings. And that defense was nowhere to be found. More guys than usual were getting beat off the dribble, and more guys than usual were finishing at the rim, whether Brook was in the game or not. And again, Milwaukee, they're absolutely going to go through this game with a fine-tooth comb and find all the little things that they could have done better. But certainly the use of Jay Crowder is probably not going to happen when they meet again. And they've got to figure out why was Brook such a non-factor. What were the Celtics doing, scheme-wise, that made him such a non-difference maker? Because this, again, I've seen the Bucks play at least 8, 9, 10 times this year, and by far this was the least impactful game I've seen Brook play. Not even close, because he's been really good. I mean, I think at this point it would be a crime if he's not the defensive player of the year. I think he's been that good, but obviously tonight that was not the case.
That's a big award, but to your credit,
over Jackson.
What's that?
I guess so. Over Jackson, I guess so.
I mean,
hell yeah.
He has been really damn good this year. I know Bobby's tooted his horn
pretty much up to those
times.
two. I mean, down to those two, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the fact you're right, Sean. I mean, the fact that they were kind of he was an afterthought out there tonight. Really, they're not concerned about Brook Lopez, which is different from past games that we've actually seen Lopez have a pretty big effect. So I want to put this comment up, and I want to read this quote from Joe Mazzulla. I'm not co-signing this comment, but it kind of goes hand in hand with something Mazzulla said, and this is from Jared Weiss on Twitter. Joe Mazzulla essentially said he wants his team to enjoy the win and understand why they won, then recognize tomorrow's game is worth the same in the standings, and they have to show up again with full force and focus. Noted that he trusts his team to do that. So
you know what that is, Jimmy, right?
What's that?
Don't let Washington. There better be a sequel to the Washington game.
Exactly. Well, that's what it is. He's reminding his guys that they can't just show up for the big games and take their foot off the gas or take other teams lightly and the ones that maybe people aren't going to be as fired up to play for. And we've all probably – it's not just Celtics' problem. Let's be honest. It happens in all sports, right? I mean, even regular season, against a team that you're not going to see later on, it's a grind out there, and you just sometimes you just don't bring it the way you need to. But you still gotta
build that sandcastle, though.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. As
Joe Mazzulla would say,
as we saw on Tuesday, you'll get embarrassed if you play that way. So, just another note. This is another tweet from Jared. Mazzulla says he's going to talk to Rob and Al on the plane to see how they are feeling, but it sounds like it's possible they will play on a back-to-back, which I believe would be the first time that those guys would play on a back-to-back. So, we'll see. Whether
that was part of my thinking why when they were up by 41 points, get Rob's ass out
right,
so that
get him out of the game.
Yeah.
But
but we'll see. I mean, I think the fact that they're starting to consider it, they're getting closer to being able to put a little bit more, maybe wear and tear. Not that we want them to, and I certainly don't want them to do anything that is going to jeopardize them, being able to play more in the playoffs. But again, you won't need back-to-backs in the playoffs. But I think it's just wanting to build off of good performance, good rhythm together, getting some sort of, I guess rhythm is the word I wanted to use, so I'll use it again. Going into the playoffs, it's been better. It's been a lot better over the last maybe 10 days than it was prior to that. I mean, they've had ripped off a handful of pretty big wins, including this one. But when you mix in a stinker or two, it just kind of puts your antennas up a little bit. So I think they probably want to just get a little bit more time together, especially if you've got Rob playing a little bit more, looking like himself. It's the perfect time to sort of try to incorporate that a little bit more. And this is the perfect time to remind all of our viewers that today's show is brought to you all by FanDuel, our very good friends at FanDuel. And if you go to FanDuel.com/Boston and sign up, you'll get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. That's with a $10 deposit. John Zannis is still tooting his horn over his Jaylen Brown props pick. But certainly, there's a type of bet for everybody. I've been on this run of betting no dunks in the first 3 minutes of the game. It's not plus money, which means like you bet more than you're gonna win back. But I mean, dude, what it does, it kind of makes the first 3 minutes of the game pretty electrifying. When typically you're just kind of getting in the zone for these games. The first 3 minutes, you're just standing, you're just staring at the TV, screaming like, "Shoot the three, shoot the three." So that's kind of my favorite bet right now. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Make sure you're and vice versa. Make sure you're blocking.
That's gotta be a tough moment for you. You're thinking that it's gonna be a dunk, and then someone comes in like Mutombo. There you go.
That's what you want. I don't want any dunks.
Yes.
I don't want any dunks. You can actually, but you can make it so you can bet one dunk in the first. So if you think there will be a dunk, you can bet there to be a dunk too, and you'd make more money in that case. But I'm just no dunks. It's easier. But anyways, FanDuel.com/Boston, guys. If you're in Massachusetts, if you're not, but you're nearby, quick little drive over the weekend over the border. Get the sign up in, get your bonus money, and you can take that $200. You can put it all on the Celtics to win the championship if you think that that's what they're going to do, and you can make some real money that way. So again, that's FanDuel.com/Boston. And I have to read this too. It's 21 plus, and you have to be present in Massachusetts. First online real money wager only. Again, it's $10 for your first deposit, which is required. The bonus is issued as a non-withdrawable bonus bet that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. And if you have a gambling problem, Hope is here. GamblingHelpInMA.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Guys, just make sure you're gambling responsibly. That's the big takeaway there. But have fun with it. And that is the FanDuel spiel. What else stood out to you? Anything else? What am I missing tonight that stood out to you guys? I mean, we talked about, obviously, Tatum and Brown. How about Horford's 30-foot three-pointer? It had to be the deepest three of his NBA career. And he actually was just on a podcast, the JJ Redick podcast. I forget the name of it, but Redick's a pretty good host. And it's rare to get, I think, Horford publicly, really anywhere. He's a man of few words. So they sat down and, Old Man in the Three. That's the name of JJ Redick's podcast. Really good NBA podcast. And this episode just came out. I think it came out today. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, please do. But he actually talked about how he has evolved his game. He's had to evolve his game. And he remembers, this is from the podcast, he remembers, being on the Hawks and watching Joe Johnson just launch three-pointer after three-pointer and being like, wow, like, I can't believe how far away he's taking these shots. Like, he didn't think he'd ever be a player that would be taking three-pointers. And now he's shooting at a clip that's, one of the best in the NBA. And he took his own 30-foot three-pointer tonight, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, the thing that Al is doing, and we've had conversations about that. It goes back to when he was in Atlanta. Kenny Atkins, who coached the Brooklyn Nets for a little bit, was assistant there, and they spent a ton of time developing his ability to expand his game and become a deep shooting threat. 30 is a bit deep, even for Al. I don't think we will see him take another 30-footer again this year. But the thing about Al that I think it's one of the things that endears him to his teammates is that he's a worker. He's just going to work to get better. And he's not. The funny part to me is he's one of the best percentage-wise three-point shooters in the NBA. And I don't know if they've called a single play for him to take a three. Uh, it's just he's just one of the options when they run sets. Tatum will look to drive and either finish at the rim or kick it to someone who's open. And often Al is that guy who's open. And Al has made teams pay repeatedly like that. And I'd even go a step further and say that Al has probably extended his career a year or two. Because of his ability, the lack of wear and tear that he's had to go through physically, not only playing away from the basket, but also playing fewer games because of load management. So Al's in a great spot. And this was a game that I thought Al low-key had a really good impact. I think he was one of the factors that kept Lopez from being more impactful when it came to, rim protection. And another guy who I thought had a good game for the most part. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well. I thought he took a couple of bad shots, but Marcus Smart. Because if you look at the start of the game, they had Giannis guarding Marcus, and Marcus. I think he hit like 1-3 early on and made another basket, and then that forced him to kind of do things a little bit differently. And he has to walk that fine line between recognizing when a team is disrespecting your offensive game. And all you got to do is make one shot and get their attention. Don't forget who you are. You're Marcus Smart. You're not Ray Allen. You're not, these guys who can just, can knock down 5 threes just straight out of bed. That's not who you are. So I thought he did a good job of just forcing him to respect his offensive game a little bit more, still getting other guys involved. And again, I look back at, Drew Holiday, and it was a team effort, but Marcus is one of the guys that, helped minimize Drew's impact. Went from 51 last night to 6 tonight.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Smart much. I mean, you think that he's one of the unheralded players tonight's game just for the way he played on defensive end? Because obviously, offensively, nothing really sticks out to you there. But certainly, the defensive part of his game is, we know, he's all defensive player. We know
I was about to say that Marcus showed up tonight for sure. The defensive player of the year showed up, and then people can say that hasn't been the case all year long, and sure, I mean, battling injuries.
They're right. It hasn't been the case all year. They're absolutely right.
He said the same thing,
especially after the All-Star break. I mean, he's trying to get back there, and I think this is a great step in the right direction. But just to go back about Al real quick, he's just so good without the ball in his hands, right? Whether it's setting screens, getting open. I mean, I think that is a big part of his game as well. And then also just making those extra passes. I mean, he's such a good passer as well. But yeah, no question, this has extended his career. This 3-point touch that he's had is so consistent with it. His best, he hasn't shot this well ever. It's nearly 50%, one of the best in terms of percentage-wise, the best shooters in the NBA. And it's really helped the Celtics on offense, especially in games like this where he's going to have those open looks. I mean, guys like Brook Lopez, they don't want him to keep roaming around the perimeter all game long. As the night goes on, he can, if he gets hot like he did tonight, he's going to make you pay. And that's exactly what he did. And along with guys like Tatum and Brown going off the way they did. I mean, it was just way too much offensive firepower for the Milwaukee Bucks to extinguish, essentially.
Yeah, and I know we may have jumped the gun to Marcus, but I'll just co-sign on everything you guys said about Al. I mean, he wouldn't even his worth. Never mind the couple of years that he's added on physically, Sherrod, but just his worth to teams. I mean, I don't even know if he would be playing if he didn't have an outside shot right now. He's not a guy that's going to tower over other bigs in the league, and if he doesn't develop and more of an outside shot, that's where the league is obviously trended. Then I question what role he would even have on a lot of these teams. As guys get older, they don't want to bang down low anyway. So that was just a smart move in every sense of the word for him to do that. And obviously the Celtics were smart, and Brad Stevens was smart to recognize that, by adding that to his game, they can extend him, and he can extend his career, and then they can benefit from that. So
yeah, well, that was a big part of Kenny Atkins, and I mentioned Kenny again because Kenny was really instrumental in getting Al to embrace becoming a stretch big. That was pretty much the selling point for Al, was that Kenny pointed out how this is going to allow you to stay in the league much longer than you normally would, because when he started becoming more of an outside threat and looking at those shots, it was at that point where the league was starting to become more of a stretch big league. That's how, for example, you go back to Kelly Olynyk That's one of the big reasons why they drafted Kelly Olynyk over this Giannis Antetokounmpo guy coming into the league, because Kelly was a
We don't talk
7-footer.
about that. We don't talk about that.
Kelly was a 7-footer who could stretch the
Swing
floor.
and a miss,
Yeah.
Danny. Swing and a miss.
But the thing is, the way the league was moving at that time, it made sense in that moment to go get a 7-footer who's a little bit older, which means that they're a little bit more polished, who you know what you're getting, and as the development isn't going to take as long. But again, Al embraced the idea that he had to become more of a perimeter threat, and the Celtics, I think, have just kind of basically taken that concept and put it on steroids with what they're doing now, because Al isn't just like a stretch big. That's pretty much, he's a catch and shoot guy. That's pretty much what they're looking for him to do, which is a radical change from a guy who spent the early years of his career, banging with the, with the Kevin Garnett's.
I was gonna say.
And
I'm always thought of my.
Needless to say, Al is cool with this transition period he's in now. He has no issues, being a catch and shoot guy.
No, absolutely not. And again, that's
and it's not just being a deep threat, right? You have to be efficient, right? I mean, that's how you stay around this league, and he's done that obviously this season in a big way, and he's been doing it since last year. And that half season off in OKC, it was like rejuvenated him to come into Boston and become the guy he is now. This role that he's taken on, and it's huge. It's crucial for sure.
Yeah, speaking of Al, he spoke tonight. He had a couple of things. I don't have the full quote in front of me, but basically said that he saw a different look in Tatum and Brown's eyes tonight, which probably would explain their combined 70 points. And he was also asked about if tonight was sending a message, and he said, it's not about sending a message, it's just for us to handle our business. So another good thing about having a guy like Al Horford on the team is that he leads by example, obviously more than by voice, but he's the type of guy that knows what to say, when to say it, and he's somebody that you can rely on him. I think you can depend on him. He's not gonna, like you said earlier, Sherrod, he's not gonna try to do too much out there. He knows what his role is and how he can help the team, and he goes out there and he does it. And I think he's exceeded everybody's expectations over the last 2 seasons. Certainly myself. I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I knew the type of player Al Horford was. I just didn't know how much of it he had left. But he's got pretty much all of it left. I mean, what he does really well. And that's really all you can ask for a guy. And so he's going to be huge for them in the playoffs. And he's a guy, again, that he's like old reliable, right? Just trusty. And I just think that it's paying dividends for them right now. So that was something from our guy Al. We did mention Marcus briefly. I don't know if you guys had anything more to add, Josue. I don't know if you really got a chance to say what you wanted to say, because you went back to Al on that. But Marcus had himself a great night defensively, and we haven't talked.
Yeah, more of it. I mean, really, like I was saying earlier, just about him getting back to that guy he was last year, the Defensive Player of the Year. This was one of those Defensive Player of the Year nights, and we haven't seen a lot of those lately. So it's good. It's good. I mean, we want to see how that body responds on the second night of a back-to-back for sure. But I just think Marcus, when he's playing that type of elite defense, man, you see the effects. I mean, look at Drew Holiday's stat line, right?
Absolutely. And he said tonight, this was a redemption game. Marcus Smart said they wanted to redeem themselves. So clearly,
no, Judah, I'm not going to stop shaving my mustache. All right.
Clearly, tonight was a game that they wanted to prove to themselves. I hope that they're not still trying to prove to other people things, because that's really not what a championship caliber team should be doing. You're supposed to block out that noise and really just keep it amongst yourselves. If you guys prove to yourselves if you want, but I don't think they really need to prove to anybody, whether it's media, whether it's opposing players, teams, coaches, whatever, anything. They should know who they are at this point in their careers, but their season. And if they come out like they did Tuesday or pick another game, they should feel bad about that, and they should want to prove it to themselves that was a one-off. That was a game that's not who they are, and come out the way they did tonight. So I think everyone has to be pretty happy with the response tonight. Now, if they go out and lay an egg tomorrow against Indy, then we're going to come on the show and have the same complaints, I guess. So it's going to kind of feel like Groundhog Day. But I'm hanging on I'm hanging on this idea that I don't necessarily think there's a switch that would be flipped, because I don't really think they need to flip it, because we've seen it enough where we know what these guys are capable of. I just think the intensity is going to ratchet up as soon as, game one of the playoffs starts, and that should be the level of play that we see. I'm not saying they're going to drop 140 every night, but the effort and the intensity, the showing up, to start the game, that should not be up for question. You should not be questioning any playoff team's intensity or attitude or, wanting it enough. I think that's, at this point, something we can all agree on.
Well, the thing, Jimmy, that we have to just constantly remind ourselves of, and they have to constantly remind themselves of, is no one is surprised when they go out and play the way they did now. We've seen that enough this season to know that they have the potential to dominate anyone and everyone. It's not about ability and all about consistency. That is what has been the issue with them. To your point, if they go out and lose to Utah tomorrow, which is very possible, no one will be surprised about that, because that reminds us how consistently inconsistent they have been most of the season. For them, they need to break that cycle. They need to find that point, that mile marker in their team, where you don't have to necessarily be great every night. But if there's a team that's playing for very, very little, and you're playing for potentially competing for the number one spot, you need to play with the desire and energy and just that effort, that edge in those games. And that is the disappointment when you lose to teams like Orlando, you lose to teams like Washington, you lose to teams like Utah that you had pretty much beat for 3+ quarters in their building, and then you just basically you crapped away the game at the very end.
Right.
Those losses individually don't mean much, but then you start looking at your tally at the end of the year and realize you may wind up not getting the number one seed by 1 or 2 games.
Right.
And you realize you basically crapped away 6, 7, 8 games simply because you didn't
bring it
with a level of consistent effort. That is maddening. But again, you accept that reality and you go into the playoffs hoping that things will be different, hoping that you will play with greater consistency. I'm not convinced that they're going to do that, simply because I'm looking at their season,
right?
And that's just.
I think that's fair.
Because
that's fair.
Just frustrating.
You just hope that team doesn't show up at any point during the playoffs.
Well,
I mean,
right. I'm not saying
if that costs these guys a game or two. I mean, that could be something that could be forcing, a game 7 against a team that you shouldn't be playing game 7 against, whether it's a first round matchup or, someone that's that you have to go into a game 7 in order to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, like that's the kind of, that's the difference between these Celtics teams when they're playing that way, the way we saw Washington and what we saw tonight. I mean, costing you a playoff games is going to be that's a different conversation. And that's just, you hope that doesn't happen,
Yeah, and I mean that's unacceptable. I think if that were to be the case, there would be a lot of criticism. Let's say, I don't even want to get into it. I'm not gonna go down that path right now. We'll cross that.
Don't do it.
We'll cross that bridge. Don't let me.
Exactly. When
don't
we
let me
find out
start
which team
talking
they're
about
playing in the first round.
hypotheticals. Don't let me start talking about hypotheticals.
Yeah, I mean, once we know who they're playing in that first round, we'll do all the hypotheticals. We'll play that game that Jimmy loves to play.
Well, we were talking about consistency, guys, and I want to say one thing that's very consistent in my life right now. It's athletic greens, and I know it's consistent in your guys' life too.
I was like, what?
It's literally the only consistent thing in my life, guys. Help me. No, visit athleticgreens.com/garden for a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Guys, Athletic Greens is a green powder made up of 75 vitamins, minerals, nutrients, adaptogens, prebiotics, probiotics. We got a little mushroom complex mixed into this bad boy. I would put this product up against any other product of its kind in terms of the amount of nutrients and vitamins and minerals you're getting. I would. I take it all the time. I'm not just saying that. I actually do. I'm fairly certain you guys are as well. I know that you guys certainly were at one point, and I'm sure you guys still are. It's just a good way to start your day. It's very simple. 1 scoop into a cup of water, down the hatch you go, and you're off. It's going to get everything you need for your greens. And let's be honest, guys, we're not getting enough greens. I'll just say that right now. We're not. Josue, are you eating your vegetables when mom and dad aren't around? I doubt it. I highly doubt it.
Every once in a while before the Celtics games, but mostly it's from Athletic Greens, to be honest.
There you go.
He's
Absolutely.
lying.
He's lying. He's
It's
lying right
all
to our
about the AG.
faces.
He doesn't do no vegetable than the ones he gets from AG. Stop lying to me.
You see a little bit of salad on the side, Sherrod, sometimes.
He's
A little
lying.
side, he blasts the Caesar dressing
With
all over it.
with a bunch of ranch on it, right?
Yeah.
He gets some dressing with some lettuce on it. Yeah, that's what he does.
Yeah. So,
And like 7 croutons. Or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly. He's having more carbs in his salad than he is with an Italian sub. So, guys, this is the actual healthy way to get your greens. So, give it a shot. Honestly, I do the subscription service. You can cater the subscription to once every 30 days, once every 60 days. If it's something that you don't think you'll take every single day, you can spread that out and you can just cut the price basically in half. So if you're concerned about the price, that's one way to sort of budget it a little bit differently. Honestly, taking it once every 2 days is better than not taking anything at all. So I would highly suggest giving that a shot. And they're also doing a 90-day money-back guarantee, which a lot of people probably don't want me to say, but I'll let you guys know. It's risk-free. If you try it and for some reason you're not feeling it, money back, just like that. So once again, guys, that's athleticgreens.com/garden for a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. And our Garden Report t-shirt. Look at that thing. Look at that Garden Report t-shirt. It looks so
That thing
nice.
is sweet.
That thing is sweet. Despite the fact that it looks like Bobby has white hair in it, it's actually a bucket hat because it's bucket hat Bobby. Guys, these shirts are shipping. I spoke to Gelso himself about this. So if you guys do purchase Athletic Greens, there's a form you can fill out that will get that shirt delivered right to your door, probably in time for the playoffs. So again, that is athleticgreens.com/garden. So that is our Athletic Greens plug, guys. Sure, a couple other things that happened tonight. Middleton got knocked out of this one. He took an elbow to the face by Jaylen.
On a Jaylen drive, right.
Decent amount of blood there. I don't know if I doubt that's anything long term to be concerned about. Maybe he's wearing the Jaylen Brown mask next game, but he was fairly ineffective leading up to that. Anyways, we know how good the Bucks have been since he's returned. Is that a direct correlation, or is that more just the team sort of getting things going? I mean, we also know Middleton's killed the Celtics throughout his career, so I mean, he's a guy that everyone's I would say concerned to a certain point about. But it felt like they were able, I guess, like everybody tonight, they were able to sort of to limit his effectiveness.
Well, you know what? Here's the weird thing about Chris Middleton. First of all, he's still a very good player. I mean, let's not pretend as if all of a sudden, what happened tonight is a reflection of who he is as a player. Now, that's not true. He's still a very good player. That being said, the injuries that he has had in the last couple of years that have kept him on a bench for long stretches of the season, he looks in many respects like a guy who's lost a step or two. And Chris was never the most athletic guy on the floor to begin with. And I think that's part of why Milwaukee, they've almost reconfigured their big three on the fly, where it was Giannis, Chris, and Drew, and now it's really Giannis, Drew, and Chris. They flip-flop. And I think and the flip-flop has been for two reasons. One, because Drew Holiday is playing so much better than most of the players in the league at his position. And two, Middleton, I think, has taken a slight step back due to the injuries, and his availability has not been what it has been previously. So I think the Celtics in this particular game, I think it was a combination. I think they did a good job of just not allowing him to get into any kind of flow or rhythm. And part of that was because he physically, I just don't think, can dominate games the way we've seen him do in the past against the Celtics.
Right.
So it'll be interesting when if these two meet in the conference finals, which I do believe will happen. His role will be one of those wild card X factor type things, similar to Malcolm Brogdon for Boston.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. That's the one I had in mind when I was talking about earlier how Jan's looking at what Tatum has in Jaylen and thinking like, man, like that's I get flashes of that, but in the best of 7 series, I mean, Middleton, people said what they did last year, but they had him in that series, not quite the same player he was, but like you said perfectly, I mean, he's that third guy now, where he used to be that second guy, used to always cause fits for the Celtics, shooting over pretty much like 60% from the floor, 50% from behind the arc, straight killer. I mean, that's not to say that he's not going to have a game like that in the best of 7 series. However, the Celtics can survive that. They have the depth to survive it. They have, when they're playing defense at a particular level, they have bodies that can prevent him from going off. So, I think the Bucks are going to have to really lean on other guys as well, like the depth overall. And Brook Lopez is a name that popped that you think of as well, next to those three guys. But yeah, I mean, look, the 3-point shot I think is big for this team. When they get shots falling, they can be really hard to beat. But that wasn't the case, and the Celtics, did everything that they could on defense to not even give them a chance to find some sort of offensive rhythm.
Let me ask you guys this on the spot: which team is deeper, Celtics or Bucks? Depth-wise here. Celtics. Okay.
They are. Here's why.
Interesting.
Here's why. Because you start looking at Milwaukee's bench, and then you see guys like Joe Ingles, who I think is a good player, but clearly his best days are behind him. You look at Jay Crowder.
Tatum may have ended his career tonight.
Again, yeah, right. But Jay Crowder, another guy, best years are behind him. Bobby Portis can impact the game with his scoring, but Bobby also picks up a lot of fouls. Then flip side, you look over the Boston.
What about Carter?
Carter's solid. He's a solid player.
Okay.
He's solid, and
Sherrod said he's paying Pritchard. That's messed up.
I think he's better than Pritchard. I mean, to be honest with you, I think Pritchard's a better shooter, but I think Carter's a better playmaker. So he's
supposed to be better than Pritchard, man. That's like one of their
the Bucks, man. You're right, Sherrod. The Bucks, they've got some names on their team, but these guys are getting up there.
Yeah,
Wes Matthews.
That was the other one I was
Goran Dragic.
I mean, they've had these guys for not Dragic,
man.
But they've had guys for years, man. This second unit.
Yeah, I mean, if this were like an NBA live game from like 6-7 years ago, that team is lit.
Right.
You
can tell some of these guys they're trying to win a ring, right? And they're jumping on a team that's a legitimate title contender. So I don't fault them for that. But you're right, when it comes to being able to sort of depend on these guys, it's definitely. If
everyone is healthy, you've got Robert Williams coming off your bench, you got Malcolm Brogdon coming off your bench, and Grant Williams, a guy that for a good chunk of the season was shooting around 40% from 3-point range. So who actually defensively plays some of his best basketball against the Milwaukee Bucks. So
and you shorten those rotations anyway. So the Bucks can have 12 names, but they're not going to be playing 12 guys a game, or at least typically you wouldn't be.
They'll play like 7 or 8, just like Boston will. But I think if you're looking from top to bottom, we're not even talking about guys like Sam Hauser, who can come in and knock down threes. Bobby's boy, Luke Cornett, who I'm not going to talk about because I'm just not going to talk about. That was it. But you've got basically an 8-man rotation. You're starting 5 plus Malcolm, Grant, and Robert Williams coming off the bench, which is pretty damn good.
One guy I'm not sure if you remembered, just talking about the Bucks' depth, is this guy, Thanasis Antetokounmpo.
Oh man,
what's up with this guy, man? Mr. Headbutt himself. This guy is a nut.
You know what he does? You know what he gives me? He gives me professional wrestling vibes.
Totally.
He goes into a game like it's a match, Rod. Like he's ready to fight. He's ready for whatever.
He's an NBA
character out there, man.
And I had a brother like that. Guess what? He's gonna be on my team.
I guess because that's the only reason he's on a team.
I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he's a guy that if you look at the other 29 teams in the league, he might be on the roster of maybe 4 or 5.
No way, dude. I am fairly certain he is not in the NBA.
Jimmy's like, no, not even close.
I think there might be 4 or 5 other teams that would, be looking for him. And those teams just so happen to be taking
Rockets. He's just like their attack dog.
Jimmy, let me finish. But those 4 or 5 teams would be having significant salary cap space in the very near future, which, might be looking to fill that slot with a certain superstar who might be familiar with him. So you see what I'm saying?
I see what you. Okay, so there's
he's like
an ulterior motive.
He's like a goon in development stage, like stuck in the development stage. He's trying to be this NBA goon, but he's not. He's not quite there.
Dude,
I like him.
He's like their attack dog. Like they're just like, all right, then just get in there and cause some trouble.
I am absolutely 100% okay with that because when you're talking about being an elite team, you gotta have some. First of all, he enjoying the hell out of just life in general. But second, you need
the happiest guy in the NBA. Are you kidding me? No one's happier than that dude.
He's like the bullpen pitcher.
He plays with an edge. He plays with a nasty, gnarly edge. And I think you need to have guys on your bench like that. At least 1 or 2. I wish the Celtics had like a pit bull on the bench, someone that was just an absolute ass when they get in the game and just trying to trying to debo you, trying to be very physical. I wish they had
Yeah.
one guy like that, just one.
Scout team QB. Thanks, Ahmed.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown on giving Blake Griffin his mask. I thought he could use some protection out there. I don't know if you saw that, Sherrod, but
I missed that.
Yeah,
I was back with you guys.
they fitted Blake Griffin with Jaylen Brown's mask after he was headbutted by the Nazis. So kind of a funny little moment there. But I mean, that's not the first time they've had a little run-in with him. I know. Remember earlier in the year, Marcus Smart did. So
yeah,
something to look at. Again, it's a side note, obviously, a little sidebar from this game, but. Just another example of just the intensity ratcheting up a little bit when the playoffs come around.
Right.
That's always going to be a part of it. So I think that was probably just a little minor thing from this one. Nothing to really get.
See, but that's another part of it though too. Like I just can't get that image of the image of Giannis on the bench, just looking down, looking up, like and he looks up and sees his brother like headbutting.
Not again.
Right, like.
He's probably thinking better him than me.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be so much better than this. Like, man, I understand that they used to the returning Eastern Conference champs, but we're supposed to have their number right now. Like, they're not playing great since the All-Star break. We're still dominant. We're still the best team in the NBA. Like, what has happened? Like, my team is in shambles right now. Like, he just gave me those vibes. Like, he really did.
I don't think that they're gonna get to. The Bucks are. We were just talking about how many veterans.
Yeah, I mean, they got short-term memory, but I mean, just in this moment for now, like it felt like that's what Giannis was.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would have obviously liked to have competed a little bit more than they did tonight, but I mean, this is a Bucks team that still many people, even after tonight, are gonna consider the team to beat. We talked about all the veterans they have on this team. They're not going to get shook from one bad night. I'm sure they're actually chalking it up to, a scheduled loss, to be completely honest. And the Celtics have been on the wrong end of a couple of those ones too, where they've met a team that's been more rested than they have been and whatnot. So again, not going to put a bunch of excuses out there, but if I'm the Bucks or if I'm a Bucks fan, that's probably how I'm getting through this one. I'm not, the sky isn't falling over one loss, and I do think that the Celtics and Bucks will meet again. Obviously, it would be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and that will be a great game. Whether or not the Celtics are the 1 seed or the 2 seed, I don't know how much it matters. I mean, I think we've seen that both of these teams can win in each other's homes, and just like that, home court flips, right? So I don't think the Celtics are going all out to get the 1 seed, but to your point earlier, Sherrod, if it was easily there for them, I'm sure they would take it. So you go back and you look at some of the losses from earlier in the year and you kind of kick yourself if you do end up a game or two short. But I don't think this is like a Boston Bruins situation where they're going for, like the Bruins tonight, for example, they ended up clinching the 1 seed, but that was just because they were gangbusters all year. It wasn't for any other reason. Now the Bruins,
they're on an unprecedented pace, so they're in a completely different stratosphere.
Right, they're actually now their decision now is to try to end up with the best NHL record or points of all time. So they have a different sort of thing that they're wrestling with. Do they want to go for that or do they want to prepare for the playoffs? So the Celtics are a little bit different. I think though, over this next next week or two, however many regular season games are, you're going to see the Celtics balance wanting to play well and win games, but also, Sherrod, they're playing for something a little bit bigger. They're going to have to consider trying to rest guys at certain points down the stretch here. Because once the playoffs start, I mean, they just keep coming. I mean, you're talking about if you're thinking about going deep into these playoffs. I mean, you've got to budget for another 15 plus games here. Minimum. Just to get to the NBA Finals, and that's on the low end because that means you steamrolled some teams. So it's a long season, and there's plenty of basketball to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if you started to see, scheduled time off here.
Well, I think a lot will just depend on whether they can gain any traction on the Bucks for that top seed. I mean, if they, because right now the good thing about this,
you can't go all out for it, can you?
Well, no, you should, because it doesn't matter what your seeding is. If your team isn't healthy for playoff time, you're not going to win. Exactly. But I do think you need to go as far as you can until it's clear that this is probably not going to happen. And I think we'll see that within the next 2 or 3 games. Next couple games, frankly. I think
the next 3 games are big. You've got Jazz tomorrow. Did I say Indy earlier? I meant to say Utah, so I apologize. But then you've got the big one against Philly. Do you want to be full on for that? And do you want to? Is that sort of like a test it out type of a game?
If you beat Utah tomorrow and then you're going into that Philly game and you're maybe like a game game and a half behind Milwaukee. Oh, hell yeah. You're trying to win that. You're trying to beat Philly. One,
Right.
because it brings you that much closer to the top seed. And two, Philly is a team that for you to get where you want to be at the end of the day, you're probably going to have to go through them. So to me, and that's a team that you've had their numbers in previous years.
And that's it. Sorry.
So to me, it makes sense to, again, the next couple of games, I think, will dictate what they do for the final week of the season as far as resting guys.
Right. And
yeah, I think you see that for sure, especially against a top tier team like that. I mean, that's a final test. You know, when you think about the last time these two teams met down in Philly, I mean, yeah, if you're the Celtics, I think you want to have your guys, and especially if you're in the mix for first. I mean, that goes without question. I mean, that was their approach last season at least. I mean, I know this is different with Joe Mazzulla leading things, but I'm sure he has that same mindset. He's been saying that for weeks now, that his focus has been on how the team is as a whole compared to, you know, chasing number one. I mean, he didn't say that that's a priority, but obviously those two things kind of go hand in hand now when you think about where the Celtics are in the standings and where they want to be in this final stretch going into the postseason with some momentum that's nothing like what we saw in Washington. So I think that changed things in a way, but also if you have a chance again to, after beating the Bucks, and a chance to play for number one, to grab the number one seed, I think you take it for sure.
Yeah, not only that, but you don't want to lose to the Sixers and then all of a sudden they backdoor you into the 2 seed in the last couple of games somehow. You know, you rest a couple. You know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure that you have enough of a distance between the Sixers to end up in that 2 seed so that you can at least have home court against them in a second round matchup. You don't, and then you can actually rest a couple guys, maybe the last game or two of the year. You know, you've got a couple against Toronto towards the end there. So again, you know, that's something that Mazzulla is obviously going to have to figure out with his staff and with his guys. But we are coming down to it here, guys. Again, Celtics with a big win tonight, 41-point win, which is pretty unheard of against. I wonder if that's one of the biggest margins of victories between like the top 2 teams in a conference. That'd be a good stat to look up someday. But we're going to probably wrap it up here in a few minutes, guys. Again, I just want to remind everybody that our show is brought to you guys by FanDuel. You want to make sure you go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. With just a $10 deposit and a $5 bet, you will get $200 in bonus bets. You can put that on any bet that your little heart can think of. The FanDuel has about 1 billion different options and props. So again, that's FanDuel.com/Boston. And then our good friends at Athletic Greens. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/garden for a free 1-year supply of vitamin D, which is very important. We don't even talk about vitamin D, guys, but vitamin D is a huge defense vitamin for everybody. And a 1-year supply of, and 5 free travel packs. So travel packs are huge too. You throw it in the gym bag, you go away for a couple of days, you don't want to bring the big tub with you, toss the travel packs in there. So again, that's at athleticgreens.com/garden. And a couple little stats here. Largest win against the Bucks in franchise history tonight for the Boston Celtics, which is a pretty storied franchise, I might add. And the Bucks had scored, how about this? The Bucks had scored 100-plus points in 33 straight games entering tonight. And as we all know, they ended up with 99, probably because they benched all their good players after 3 quarters. But it goes to show just how far away they were in this one. And Tatum has 233 threes this season. Only Isaiah Thomas has more in a single season for the Boston Celtics. And I'm not sure how close he is to Isaiah Thomas off the top of my head, but he's got a handful of games left here, so maybe that's something that he does. Do you guys have any final thoughts from this one? Sherrod, we'll start with you.
Back home, Utah, handle your business. It's that simple. No, there's no need to get all huffy puffy, and if they could just beat Utah and keep it moving, that's it.
Yeah, let's see more of the same, especially on defense, man. Holding this team to 100 points. I mean, Amit just fed that stat. Did you just say that? I don't know if you just said that, Jimmy, or not, but the Bucks entered tonight's game scoring over 100 points. You just said that, right?
Yeah,
right.
Thanks for paying attention. You can say it again. Go ahead, repeat it.
Yeah, you were listing off all those stats. I kind of just
Damn, Josue.
Damn, man.
That last
Jimmy
took
was
it all.
dropping
That
some
last took it
knowledge
all,
bombs for a
Nobody
change.
listens
I
to me,
didn't. I
man.
didn't repeat it twice. You know when Jimmy's about to sign off, so your mind kind of wanders.
I
But
hear you.
Josue, this is the Garden
anyway,
Report, Josue, by the way.
Celtics.
Jimmy mentioned that at the
Anyways.
top
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
I don't know if
Celtics
you
won
caught
tonight,
that.
Josue, 140-99. I don't know if you caught that either.
Listen, they're not the Bucks, but you better treat them like it. I want the Celtics to treat every team like they're the Bucks from now until the postseason, and
that.
that's just this is their identity, so to speak, right? Like this is the turning point, if you will. Whatever the case may, whatever it is to get these guys revved up to the way that they played against the Bucks tonight, man, it's got to be the same. So I think that I think it carries over. I do. Even on a second night of a back-to-back, heading back home to Boston. It won't be easy. I don't think it'll be a blowout win, but I think you see a little. I think you see more of the same.
I wonder if we will see old friend Danny Ainge tomorrow in the TD Garden. Will you boys be there? Sherrod, I know you're traveling. I don't know if you're gonna make.
I should be there in time for the game.
Okay, Josue.
Yes,
All
yeah,
right.
I'll be there.
I'm
back.
I want to hear about a combo with Danny Ainge and pick his brain a little bit on what he's seeing. But my
fun,
final
man.
thoughts. I mean, it's fun when you hit shots. Celtics 56 from the field, 52 from three percentage wise, and you just again it's a reminder of how good these guys really are when they come out the way they need to come out and just put the foot on other teams' throats. So this was a fun one tonight. Tomorrow, like you said, Josue, hopefully it'll be another fun one. A little revenge game for the Celtics after a real stinker in Utah a couple weeks ago. It's a Missoula revenge game too. He got a lot of criticism after that one, so I'm sure he's looking to make up for that tough L there. We will be back with everybody again tomorrow night. Little Friday night fun at the TD Garden.
Let's do it.
We'll have complete coverage pregame, during the game, postgame. The boys are back in town. We want to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight after a big Celtics win, 140-99, and we will see you guys all next.